This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa. This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellow Wall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 523 of the Yellow Wall Pod. I'm your Bosko, and today I will be sounding a little bit differently because I'm currently in a hotel room in Pittsburgh. But nevertheless, we will be talking about the drop points in the Champions League, a big point scored in the Bundesliga against Hoffenheim, and of course we will preview Sunday's game against Freiburg. For all that and more, joins me Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, I am doing okay, recovering from a Wisconsin snowstorm. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well myself, thank you very much. Now let's talk about yesterday's 2-2 draw against Borussia Dortmund in the Champions League, a result that leaves us all very dissatisfied, most of all Marco Reus and Kevin Groskreuz, who were watching this game from the Yellow Wall. Something we will be talking about in a little bit but just a massive chance squandered, because I think Borussia Dortmund could have moved up into, I think, 3rd or 4th place. Matthias, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it, Dortmund would be 4th. They'd be ahead of Manchester City and Atalanta, but goal difference-wise, PSG is still ahead of them. Okay, so this match, I'm going to go straight away to my favorite stat, which is crosses. And Dortmund in this match crossed the ball 31 times, and Bodo Glimt crossed it 10 times. And again, I hate to say it, but that's a little bit indicative. That being said, in the last 2 matches, there were a lot of really nice crosses. Whether that was coming from Jan Koot or from Fabio Silva, or Daniel Svensson, some really nice crosses. So, and it's not like Dortmund have tiny little people in the front. You know, they have pretty big, strong striker attacking players with good verticals. I mean, Adeyemi's vertical is something to behold. So I can't necessarily fault that. But if you look at other matches where Dortmund are, I want to say, a little bit more in control, if we look at, to a degree, Hoffenheim being a difference, they crossed the ball 19 times, and Hoffenheim crossed it 17 times. So there's a huge difference there. Dortmund, of course, dominating in possession, passing accuracy, and Dortmund really there was one scare in the beginning against Bodo Glimt, but then pretty much dominated the match for a long stretch. I would say for the first hour. And yes, I know that included a sad piece goal from Bodo Glimt. However, it was a very well-worked set piece. I will say that was a very well-worked routine. They played it very well. I will argue they didn't deserve the draw, the equalizer at that point. When you look at what they produced, Dortmund putting a lot of pressure on Bodo Glimt, and their keeper also having to save the ball, not 7 of 9 times, so 9 times shots on target, and produced a few very, very good saves. Of course, I can't remember the keeper's name off the top of my head. Oh, it's Haikin, the Russian, the one that you had mentioned previously. So, of course, that was the jinx, because he had some very nice saves.
Yeah, that's my bad. I definitely jinxed him when I said that Eastern European goalkeepers are not doing well against Dortmund in Champions League, which they usually aren't, but unfortunately this one did very well, especially the Anselmino header when that came off a corner kick. I think that was an amazing reaction save. I still think that Gregor Kobel actually had the best save. I think Hauger, before Dortmund even scored, had a really good chance. It doesn't show up in the expected goals or shot statistics because the linesman did raise his flag, but the replay did show that Hauger was indeed offside. So an awesome save from Kobel to guide the ball to the post instead of letting it in.
That is correct.
Matthias, what did you think of Dortmund's opportunities overall?
Yeah, it's an interesting match because Dortmund were in control. They're up 2-1. They had multiple opportunities to kill the match and win it. Maxi Baia not having his best game when it comes to actually scoring, which is his main job. And I actually thought, once again, Fabio Silva impressed me. I think he's playing quite well. And it just kind of fell apart for Dortmund at, I would say, the 67th minute mark. Because this is really when the teams made some massive changes. You had, in a span of a minute, 5 subs, 2 on the Dortmund side, Adeyemi for Baia, Guirassy for Fabio Silva, and then Helmersen, Nielsen, and Jørgensen coming in for Bodo Glimt. And then, of course, in the 75th minute, Hauger with the equalizer. And then I will actually go so far as to say that for an extended period thereafter, Bodo Glimt were the better side. At least they were putting more pressure on Dortmund than they had done previously. And I think one of the big issues we have there is simply that Dortmund didn't see out this match at a time when they should have, when they had the opportunities to do it, and then they just didn't. And we've talked about that in the past, that be a little more clinical in your winning these games. This time it was more Maxi Baia than Adeyemi. Adeyemi had matches in the past where that was him, where it's like, oh man, you're just a little more clinical, we win that. And honestly, lately, Guirassy has just not been clinical in front of goal. We can be happy that Julian Brandt is having a bit of a resurgence right now, is playing quite well and scoring goals. but Dortmund had plenty of opportunities to score 3 or 4 goals at least in this match prior to the 75th minute final equalizer.
Yeah, for sure. Maximilian Bayer, as you said, had the most chances, or should have had the most chances. So there was obviously the header of Fabio Silva cross where his form looked really good. He just put it off target. There was another chance where he put it wide from distance, and I think when Adeyemi, no, Koto, I think it was, had a chance, and he sort of tried to shoot the rebound with the outside of his boot. But yeah, as I previously also mentioned, the Anselmino chance was pretty good. I think one of the best chances Bayer could have had, and also what would have been one of the better moves in the game, was when Mecha unfortunately took too long to pass the ball directly when Bayer was wide open, right in the middle in front of the box, because Dortmund had some really awesome combination play before and with some nice back heels here and there, but unfortunately they did not manage to convert and kill that off, because that would have been it. Honestly, at that point in the game, this would have been the final blow, and I think Bodo Glimt would have not come back from that. But unfortunately, Dortmund did not manage to kill the game off, and that means we had one displeased Nico Schlotterbeck after the game. Matthias, do you want to talk about that interview a little bit?
Well, I mean, he wasn't very happy. No, I mean, in general, his general argument was, let's call it sloppiness of play, that Dortmund, that you have players who are, I don't want to say too much into it for themselves, inability to kill off a game, bad touches. So, I mean, it's just, I saw somewhere, I forget where this morning I read it, somebody, the headline was, the winning mentality. Schlotterbeck's basically criticizing that Dortmund don't have a winning mentality, which, oh my God, if I have to hear this winning mentality conversation again.
But I mean, he did basically say that the ability to kill off a game like this is what makes the difference between a winning mentality and not having one. And I mean, there was a certain amount of sloppiness, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't conducive that after Bodo Glimt equalized that Borussia Dortmund did not find a chance again to score. I think that's something he also maligned.
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's a soundbite after a match with a frustrated player. And the media, of course, then gets exactly what they want. Exactly. I mean, what they love to do is catch a coach, a player that's frustrated and poke them into saying something. And, it's not like, Nico Schlotterbeck is also younger. He's not over 30 years old, veteran. But even a 30-plus-year-old veteran, you think of Mats Hummels, he wasn't shy of saying things when he was frustrated. Same with Marco Reus. And I think he's not wrong with what he says. However, it does ignore the fact that for the longest stretch in this match, Dortmund were the significantly better side. And with a little bit extra luck, it would have killed off the game. They created the opportunities, the shot scoring actions, all of that was there. It's just, it didn't happen. Whether it was a frame of goal, whether it was the goalkeeper, whether it was just a little bit unlucky here and there. And then Helge, of course, his equalizer, he was also a little bit lucky that the ball got through to him in the way that it did. So I think that's giving a little bit discredit to Dortmund's overall performance, which I thought their overall performance was quite good. Schlotterbeck was just frustrated in that moment. He wants to win. He's a very emotional type player. Obviously, you can see that on the pitch. And so the media got literally the perfect soundbite from him. And now really, I'm sick of it because it's demonstrably false, in my opinion. The narrative of Dortmund don't have the right mindset. This cliched bullshit that they love to throw at Borussia Dortmund. Now they have it again from one of the players who has the right mindset, even though he's a player, so he's far from perfect. I can't necessarily disagree with him on certain things. I mean, when Guirassy and Adeyemi aren't into it, you can clearly see they're not into it. I think Guirassy is also frustrated that he's not scoring the goals. I think...
Yeah, he's also not getting this.
Correct. 100%. 100%. And in the first 60 minutes, you had Julian Brandt, who did the scoring. But there was also, I felt like a certain drop-off in intensity when Adeyemi and Guirassy came in for Bayer and Silva. Silva was, think about it, Silva was on the pitch until the 67th minute. When you look at shot-creating actions, so actions that lead to a shot on goal or at goal, up into the 67th minute, Fabio Silva, he contributed to a quarter of all of these for the entirety of the match. And, there's an energy there when he's on the pitch and playing that Guirassy just doesn't have. They're totally different types of players. And Maxi Bayer, of course, should have scored a goal, but there was an intensity drop-off when Adeyemi came on, and I think part of it is Adeyemi is probably also tired. And I don't know, maybe he wasn't feeling it. Maybe he didn't think it was necessarily. I don't know. That we've spoken about this ad nauseum. We spoke about it last time where we talked about, do you extend Adeyemi's contract even when he has these issues, even though they're less now than they were just 2 years ago when at times he acted just like a petulant kid, but it's still there. And this was just one of those where I don't know what it was, man. I don't know if he just didn't care or if he just wasn't into it or if he didn't take Bodo Glimt seriously. And then Bodo Glimt made a lot of changes right at the same time and the game kind of shifted. And then, like you mentioned, some of the injuries. Waldemar Anton coming out as early as he did. Anselmino having to come out, who was playing really well. Jan Koets going out. Julian Riasson coming in, which I can't necessarily disagree with then. But they're just, when you look at Jan Koets, Maxi Bayer, Fabio Silva, who were key contributors on the attacking side for Dortmund in this match, all being gone by the 77th minute. Yes. Oh, for sure. 100%. 100%. And while I'll never, I mean, I just Svensson, his intensity is there, his work rate's there, and stuff like that. He just didn't have his best match. I still think overall he played well, but he didn't have his best match. And it kind of threw the concept, the entire defensive structure for a loop at that point. But be that as it may, Schlotterbeck's general criticism isn't incorrect. I think the media is making way more out of this than what it is, if you look at the bulk of Dortmund's matches. And he's just frustrated. And he has every right to be frustrated. I think him going out and saying, oh, the players that came on the pitch screwed it all up. I don't think that was a smart thing to say. I think that's something you address in the locker room. That's not something you say, because you're calling out Adeyemi Guirassy and essentially then Emre Can and Julian Riasson, even though I think you alluded to the fact that he's probably more talking about Adeyemi and Guirassy than necessarily Emre Can and Riasson, because Emre Can and Riasson came on after the 2-2 equalizer, not prior to that. And I just don't think it was the right... I don't think this is going to play well with Adeyemi and Guirassy, is my assessment from a distance.
Well, my assessment from a distance is that Borussia Dortmund needs someone who actually rattles the cage a little bit here and there, and I think there needs to be some public criticism, because I understand why Schlotterbeck is frustrated, because basically within 8 days you are now out of the cup and you squandered a massive chance to qualify within the top 8 of the Champions League, and it just feels a little bit like the season is slipping away from you. Obviously you still have the Bundesliga season, but Schlotterbeck did say that maybe some people did not quite understand, meaning his teammates, quite understand the, I guess, seriousness of the game. And to me, he is one of the leaders in the team. And if things aren't going well, I think there also needs to be a culture of accountability. And I think this is just part of it. I personally don't care what the media write about it or not. I think this is just part of this business, and the part of a winning mentality and forming a winning culture is to call people out when they're not performing. Now, obviously, he also should have applied some self-criticism, because he himself didn't play amazingly over the last weeks. And we all know that Guirassy, for example, is a bit of a diva, so that might make things worse, not better. But I think also Karim Adeyemi has accepted some blame, because that's what Niko Kovac said. So, I just hope there is a positive reaction from it. I'm still a little bit pissed that they managed to not win this game, because Marco Reus made his return. He was a TV pundit. Unfortunately, I could not enjoy his TV punditry, if that's enjoyable. I don't know how well he's doing there. But how much did you enjoy seeing him stand in the yellow wall alongside Kevin Großkreuz?
Oh, I thought it was really cool. It was nice, come back home. It's post MLS, and for Marco Reus to kind of be there. The shot I remember seeing of him was after the equalizer, and his face just like, oh wow, that's flashbacks to some of the matches where he was on the pitch for Dortmund, where his face was.
Yeah, it did make a great meme, and I'm ready to use this whenever there's a bad result.
Well, if nothing else, it shows their fans. That it once, not that we needed the proof for what Borussia Dortmund means to these players, but this is once again proof of what it means to them. Like, a lot of ex-professionals, they'll go to their clubs, and watch them play, maybe in big matches or whatever. But it's not like Marco Reus is around the corner. Los Angeles is a little further away from Dortmund. But this means something, and they're not sitting, in the VIP area where you will often see former players. No, they're there with where the fans are, where the hardcore fans are, and that's what makes it special. That once again shows what makes Dortmund so special.
Yeah, exactly. It is always cool to have former players be in the stand. I mean, we had Neven Subotic do that a couple of times as well. But just a couple of more thoughts on this game. Obviously, we haven't yet discussed the injuries really, but Waldemar Anton and Anselmino both being out probably for a longer time now really is very annoying, because Dortmund were, I thought, finally getting into a groove and finding the best center-back partnership at the back, because it allows Nico Schlotterbeck to play as left center half, and I think this is his best position, at least offensively, because it just gives him this moment. It just gives him the opportunity to play these diagonal balls to the other midfielders, be it Kauto as a right wing back, or Adeyemi, or whoever else is playing there when the opponent is moving closer to him, and he can then pass into these spaces. Is how goals happened in this game, is how goals happened in the previous game, and it's very annoying to not see that. And I thought that you could instantly see with Ben Spaini playing that position, the whole structure changes a little bit. And now Emre Can also still not 100%. Niklas Süle has been out for quite a long time, and it's not exactly confidence inducing going into the last 2 games. I even had a whole discussion I wanted to have about Anselmino maybe being, when you talk about his intensity that he's playing with, maybe also being the number 6 that Dortmund are maybe missing. But now that he's out for time, I think we can table that discussion for a while. But let's move on to Hoffenheim, because that is something more positive to talk about, and especially with Leverkusen, Stuttgart, Frankfurt all losing on this match day. It was nice to see Borussia Dortmund pouncing on that and taking the opportunity to put a little bit of a gap between them, Hoffenheim, and the previously mentioned teams. And yeah, I'm very happy with how this game went. Once again, not a spectacle, especially not the first half. But I still thought that the first goal that Dortmund scored was really well worked. A nice goal from open play. You know, the aforementioned Schlotterbeck did find Couto, I think, in midfield, and from there on out, the combinations did flow. Until the tap in, you know. Also shout out to Girassi because he has gotten a lot of flack, but you know, in the end he created also the tap in for Julian Brandt from that counter cross with his run by taking 2 defenders away from Julian Brandt. So that was definitely good, and that I thought psychologically was really well done. And of course, Jan Couto, you know, we talked about him before, had an awesome game, and maybe there's a bit of a renaissance for him, and maybe he'll be starting against Freiburg as well, because we talked about it before the Leverkusen game or after the Leverkusen games, that Grimaldo is such a difference maker for them. It would be nice to have a similar player, and Jan Couto, you know, if this is what he is capable of, then he could be that difference maker for Dortmund. Maybe not quite on the same level, but you know, Dortmund did shell out a lot of money for him, so you would hope that his production is getting there. But he also must be very much on point defensively. And of course, what I thought interesting is that the second goal really did kill it off. I mean, Nico Schlotterbeck was slipping away when he took the shot, but it did go in. So, yeah, a bit of a psychological blow. Matthias, your thoughts?
Dead on 60th minute. This was when they killed it off. I mean, Hoffenheim, until that point, were, you know, fighting, putting Dortmund under pressure. Hoffenheim had way more possession, way more passes, and pass accuracy. Where their accuracy was lacking with shots on target, they really didn't challenge Kobel too often. I thought when it came to the final third and actually making it count, Hoffenheim didn't scare me that much. They had some moments, but it really, I never felt like Dortmund are going to lose this one, especially after the 2-0. And Hoffenheim kind of fell off after that. Like it really slowed down. Yeah, that was it, which is crazy. Well, yeah, because there was still a half hour left to play. Like there was still an entire third of the match left. And the fact that it just kind of, that took the wind right out of their sails was perfect. That's killing off the match. It also helps. And again, juxtaposing this to Bodo Glimt never stopped. They didn't give up. Here, Hoffenheim just kind of meh, and that was that. And of course, well, it's easier to kill off a match when the other team really isn't doing that much anymore. And so I thought it worked out nicely for Dortmund. Dortmund being a little more reactive than proactive. I agree with you that Jan Couto was, you know, man of the match. If you look at, you know, the total XG is 1.6. XG for assists was 1.5, and he was responsible for 1.3 of the 1.5. And the top when it came to goal creating actions and shot creating actions, he dominated both those categories for Dortmund. Whereas when you look at Hoffenheim, goal creating actions, they had exactly 0 in the match. They had a lot of shot creating actions. Dortmund had 4 goal creating actions, and they only scored twice. I mean, these are, you know, if you're looking at things that immediately lead to something where the chance is relatively high to scoring a goal. And Hoffenheim didn't have any in the entire match. And I think that's indicative of it. They had a few moments here and there, but overall, Dortmund played it well because they gave Hoffenheim essentially the possession that doesn't matter, which is something that historically Augsburg likes to do to Dortmund. Be like, here, no, have it, man. You can hold on to it for 60, 70, 80% of the match, but you're not going to do anything with it. And that's a lot what it felt like with Hoffenheim. I prefer that not be the case when Dortmund's at home. To be honest, I prefer when Dortmund dominates those categories. But at the end of the day, it didn't really... When I saw the statistic and the discrepancy in that regard, I was surprised because it didn't feel quite like 60% almost possession for Hoffenheim. I didn't get that sense because usually if a team has 60% possession, you feel like there's a little bit of a domination, and it just really didn't entirely feel that way. Both teams liking the long ball equally. You know, I mean, it's a very statistically relatively even match when it came to things like corners and crosses, fouls, clearances, long balls, all that stuff is relatively close.
Yeah, which is why I'm very happy that Dortmund did win this game. But there's one little thing, once again, I feel like we should at least mention, maybe criticize, because once again, there were 0 minutes for our young talents. I've talked about it on the previous show, and I tweeted about it before the Hoffenheim game because none of them were actually in the squad. Now in the Champions League, there would have been the theoretical opportunity because you can put all these players on the bench, like a Cole Campbell, like a Filippo Mane, and of course Julian Deronville. But with the way this game developed, it just didn't work out like this. Matthias, I still think that developing Dortmund's talents is still very important, no?
Well, I mean, if you're not getting the minutes, you're not going to develop as a player. And so obviously the clear sign is they're just not going to get the minutes. Others are better than them. And Dortmund is in a tight race, both in the Bundesliga and in the Champions League. And Niko Kovac isn't one to make bold moves in lineup selections. And if he just thinks the quality gap is too big to risk that, okay. I'm always a little bit concerned with depth, but given the current formation that Kovac is going to stick with, I would send him out on loan for sure in an area that you're guaranteed that not only is he going to get playing time, but also in a system that's conducive to what you want him to develop into.
Yeah, maybe we'll see Filippo Mane against Freiburg in the squad, because now that is a position that now all of a sudden lacks a lot of depth. Now, let's talk a little bit about Freiburg, who are, I wouldn't say relatively average right now. A team that Dortmund usually like to play against. I don't know how much this is still true under Julian Schuster, because Christian Streich was a coach that always loved to be very offensive-minded and awarded Dortmund the space they needed to attack Freiburg and dissect them. Right now, Freiburg are 10th in the Bundesliga, just like I said, very average day. They just lost against Heidenheim 2-1 after being 1-0 up away from Heidenheim. Of course, always a tricky fixture. And later today, they will play against RB Salzburg in the Europa League. So Dortmund will actually have one more day to recuperate, but obviously they also will have to travel to Freiburg, which is not exactly around the corner either. But yeah, like I said before, Freiburg are currently relatively average, and they do, of course, have a couple of players that stand out as they always do. I think on Transfermarkt it's very funny that their goalkeeper Altubolu is currently their most expensive player in the squad. Vincenzo Grifo is, I guess, their most dangerous. Always want to avoid direct free kicks when he is playing. He is just very good at that and set piece deliveries in general. And I think the other player that Dortmund have to worry about is Johan Manzambi, who is just 20 years old and very dynamic in midfield. Someone who I think could maybe even develop into a player that Dortmund might be interested in the season or two. Someone that can create chances for Freiburg, and someone that's, like I said, very, very dynamic, be it his shot creating actions or sort of his end product isn't quite there yet, but just keep an eye out for him. But still, overall, I am very confident. Well, not very confident, but I'm confident that Dortmund can win this game, and obviously should win this game. Matthias, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't disagree there. I think Freiburg this season, I mean, the caveat, yes, Freiburg can be dangerous and it can be difficult, blah, blah, blah. With that out of the way, I think this is a Freiburg side now that is swimming a little bit, very up and down, not a high level of consistency. And I think that plays to Dortmund's strengths. I think Dortmund should and can do very, very well against this Freiburg side. Given how they're playing now, the Thursday match, yes, I think that definitely will play into fitness and tiredness. Dortmund have an extra match day or an extra day of rest, as you mentioned. And this kind of falls into this typical, once you get out of, say, the top 4 or 5 truly quality teams in the Bundesliga, everyone below that, when they make it into an international competition, they tend to be very inconsistent or even very bad in the Bundesliga in the same season. Freiburg, this is kind of their thing. They have a really good domestic season where they're not playing internationally. They qualify for an international tournament, and then the next season, this is kind of what you get. It's like in every 2-3 seasons, they finish quite well in the top 6, and then they fall somewhere in the middle. And I think this is the falling somewhere in the middle type season for them. And if Dortmund don't make this count, then, more serious questions need to be asked. However, Dortmund do have a buffer right now, and they don't want to lose ground to Leipzig, who are a point ahead of them. But overall, when your main goal is to just, you're probably not going to catch Bayern, so you want to have a very solid finish in the Bundesliga. You've got that buffer right now between yourself and teams below you that I believe will definitely drop more points this season than you should. Then I feel confident that Dortmund are going to go in there and win. Is it going to be a comfortable win? Probably not, because it never is against Freiburg until you've, even in the past against Christian Streich, until Dortmund scored the 3rd goal. Then it usually completely fell apart for Freiburg. I don't know if that's the kind of Freiburg Dortmund will be facing. But I do believe Dortmund will and should win this match.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Dortmund's lineup. Obviously, Nico Kovac is someone that rotates a lot. I don't know how much he will rotate in general, but he will definitely have to reform his backline. Now, I think it's pretty clear that Ben Sebaini will play as the left center half, and then Nico Schlotterbeck will probably play in the central position, and then on the right side, it's going to be either Niklas Süle or Emre Can. Matthias, since Emre Can has played a little bit more, is he the guy you would trust a little bit more?
Man, trust is such a big word, Stefan. Trust. Ooh. Dortmund's hands, Kovac, the hand he's being dealt, one of them obviously is going to start. I would probably lean towards Emre Can right now because he's at least been playing. He hasn't been out injured recently. He's got some minutes under his belt. Probably start him, Süle on the bench, and then see how things go and kind of go from there. That's how I would lean. Trust, however, I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Then we'll also see what this game will bring. I think we can knock it on the head here. As always, everyone out there, thank you for listening. If you could be so kind, leave a subscription on our YouTube channel too, if you're not listening to our podcast on YouTube. If we could get to 1,000 subscribers, that would be awesome. So please do that. And in the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully an enjoyable Dortmund game, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Until then, goodbye.